So this job was supposed to be a normal gas safety check. As soon as I go to do my tightness test, I'm feeling a little bit of a breeze on my hand and I'm hearing a whistle. And I noticed that it's leaking right there on the anaconda. So it looks like maybe someone's got flux on it or something's been on it and corroded it. But I'm gonna call Caden out and they'll come sort that for me. So this is going to be another episode of Day in the Life of a Gas Engineer. If this is your first time coming across one of my videos, then it's just a collection of jobs that I've gone to over the past week, and it's for people who are apprentices or people looking to get into gas, and just to give them a rough idea of the jobs they might be getting into or the headache they might be getting into, I can also say. So Kaylin came out and sorted that for me, which is lovely, but the landlord also asked me to upgrade that 15 mil to 22 mil. So cut it out, soldered it, that is all sorted. So this next repair is actually an interesting one because it's something I've struggled with in the past, and it's not until I called Baxi and they walked me through it that I now know to look for it. So in this job, the customer's complaining that the heating is not working at all. Basically what's happening is anytime they're trying to use the heating, the boiler's overheating, and you're about to see why now. So in terms of these boilers, they have a filter on the return pipe and they can sometimes get clogged up, and because they're clogged up, water can't then flow through, so it's not circulating properly. So it's just a case of changing that valve, but if you don't know to look for it, it can be quite a pain. So you can see it's completely gunged up, but as soon as I change that valve over, boiler started working perfectly fine. So on to the next. So for this next job, we got an F75 fault code. Now usually that's related to either the pump or the water pressure sensor, but if we take a look at this general sequence of operation that I made for a boiler, you can see that the first thing is the demand. So I'm about to turn the demand on now for the radiators, and the next thing is the pump. So we should hear the pump kick in and start to spin, but if you listen now, nothing. So the pump's trying to spin, but it's not spinning because it's seized. So a little bit of backstory: the customers went on holiday for about 2 or 3 months. When they came back, the boiler wasn't working. So just because it hadn't been used for a while, I'm guessing it just seized up. Unseized the pump, and then I was going to recharge the expansion vessel as I always do, and it had failed. So we're gonna have to sort that out. So also gonna change the expansion vessel. So usually when putting the vessel back in, I always focus on doing the bracket first to make sure it's in the right position. And then I'll line up my pipe, put the washer in and tighten up the nut. And that's it. Just have to fill up, do my safety checks. That's this job done. Now this next job was supposed to be just a normal gas safety check. Went to do a normal tightness test and I found that the nipple has been snapped off and left, which is a bit annoying, but it is what it is. I found out a cool trick to get them out. First time I come across this, I was panicking. Reason being, I went to go install the cooker that was about 45 minutes from my house. It was about 8 o'clock at night. And as always, the first thing I do before I touch anything is always test the gas. And I couldn't do a tightness test because the nipple stuck in there. So I told the guy, look, I'm gonna have to wait for Caden to come out to remove this because I don't want to touch anything, not knowing how your gas is at the moment. But I spoke to one of my friends and apparently you can just use a flathead to unwind it out. So stick it in there, spin it out. It is a little bit fiddly. It will take a little bit of time, but you can get it out instead of waiting for Caden to come. And that's it. That's out. I always keep spare nipples in the van anyway, just in case I drop them or lose them. So I'll just put a new one in after I'm done. So for this next job, we're working on a leak in Vaillant. So if we take a look, pretty obvious where the leak's coming from. You can see a pool of water. It's coming from the diverter. And if we take a closer look, it's coming from the cartridge part. So we can just get away with changing the cartridge on this job. So the first thing we need to do for this job before we turn the power off or drain the boiler down is put the diverter into mid position. And I'll show you why we need to do this in a minute. So it's going to go to the settings, put it to P06 and get that sorted. So you can see the motor is really loose on the cartridge. There's a lot of movement, but as soon as I come out of that mid position mode, you see it stiffens up and you've got no movement. So it makes it super tricky. You probably won't be able to do it without putting it in mid position. So put it back to mid position, take the cable out, and then you can turn the power off and drain the boiler down. In terms of how you take the motor off, super simple. It just kind of unhooks off. It's a bit hard to see. I'll show you when I take it out. It unhooks off, pull it out, and then that'll be the motor off. So in terms of how you take this cartridge out now, you do need to use this special tool. So you got a clip at the top, clip at the bottom, and you basically need to squeeze them in. I always snap them off. So just use this tool, squeeze them in or snap them off like I do, and then the cartridge should just pull out. One thing I do as well is I just remove this little pin here because I feel like it gives me more access when snapping off these clips. So now the clip's out of the way, got space to put my clamp on. I'm going to clamp it, break the clip, and then I have to do the same for the top one. Now both clips are snapped off, just going to use my pliers to wiggle and slowly pull it out. So got my new one, got it all greased up, just going to push it in till it won't go in no more, and then we're going to use a flathead and a small hammer, and I'm going to try whack it in. So it's important you have to hear those two clips clicking, otherwise you do have the risk of it popping out or leaking. So just make sure those two clips click and then you should be good. And that's it for this job. So gonna do my safety checks. Most importantly, when changing a cartridge, I'm gonna make sure it works. There's been times in the past I've had bad copies and I've had the headaches of them not working properly. When you run the hot water, it's mixing into the central heating. We're gonna make sure that's all fine and then hopefully move on to the next job. So for this next job, we got a Vaillant TurboMax, and the customer says when they run the hot water, the radiators are coming on. So pretty basic to diagnose. It's probably going to be the diverter. So going to drain it down, charge the expansion vessel, and then take out the diverter. So the first thing I like to do on this repair is always spray WD-40 on these nuts. Sometimes I go to these diverters and they are super glued shut. So spray WD-40, let it sit for a minute, and then try to take it off. Now, they said before this was happening, they was having issues with hot water where it was going hot, cold, hot, cold. So I'm also going to take a look at the plate as well, hence why I'm spraying the plate. So I was struggling with that nut on the left, so I had to get the big boy spanner out. But it's also worth mentioning not to try and move that top pipe, the nut that I done first, too much. Reason being, that pipe goes into the main heat exchanger, and if you do wiggle it or move it around too much, from experience, I found that it does cause it to leak at the top, and then it becomes another headache you've got to try sort out. So I always try to keep that top pipe as still as I can. Okay, so that's all the nuts undone, the clips undone from the back. So now this should just wiggle and pull towards me and it should come out. So now all the clips undone for the plate. I've got some tissue underneath to catch any water that might be in there when I take it off. The plate should just push forward now. I'm not going to be able to do it with one hand. I tried, it's not working. So I'm going to have to use two hands and then I'll be able to take it out. So, got the plate out, just gonna find a drain, put it on top of it, put some spirit of salts in there, let it do its thing, rinse it out a few times, make sure it's flowing through okay, and then put it back into the boiler. So plate's back on, gonna do the divert in reverse order now, so push it on, put the clip in, now I just need to do up these two nuts. So diverter's back together now, just going to unisolate the cold maze going into the boiler, check the plate, make sure nothing's leaking. If that's all good, then I'll fill up and make sure there's no other leaks. So from when I got here, that seal was already popped out, which is a big no-no. But in my case, it helps me out because I can see if anything's leaking from the main heat exchanger because I've been fiddling with that pipe. So if it's not, I'll just pop that seal back in and that's it. So boiler's back up and running now, but if you listen, it sounds like there's quite a bit of air in the pump, so it's going to bleed the pump a little bit, do my safety checks, but that is this job all done. So for this next job, we're working on a Biasi, and the issue is the hot water is not working at all. So again, if we refer to the little cheat sheet that I made, the first thing we're always looking for is a demand. So I tried running all of the hot taps in the house and no demand was being registered on the boiler. So usually that is just a flow turbine. So in terms of taking this one out, super simple, just isolate the cold, take out that pin, use a flathead to pop it out, and it's that simple. So I've got my new one here, just going to grease it up, put it in, and then see how we get on. So here you get to see me being weak again, struggling to get it in. In my defense, I'm using my left hand, so I'm going to switch over to my right hand, shove it in, and then now you can see it makes the clip going in a lot easier. So that's in now, unisolate the cold, gonna run the hot tap, and you can see straight away the boiler is recognizing the demand from the hot water. So this one is all good now. So for this next job, it's two flats that have been refurbed and they've got new gas runs which have been done in track pipe, and of course the landlord has used someone who isn't gas safe and didn't even bother doing a tightness test. So when he's called me, I found leaks on both of the flats, and I now get the joys of trying to find the leak and also trying to fix it. So this is the first flat. What I'm going to do is isolate the main going in there, so that way I'm testing the track pipe right from there to the gas meter. And this is the second flat. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, that way I can roughly pinpoint where the leak's coming from. So testing both of the meters again, and it's leaking exactly the same amount. So it's going to be somewhere on the track pipe between the meter and the points that I isolated. So just got to find out why. The guy's probably not done the track pipe properly, but let's see. So had the feeling it was going to be the connection on the track pipe. Put my sniffer there, and straight away you can see that is exactly where it's leaking from. And if you look at the access, there is no access at all to tighten that connection down there. So I'm gonna try to do it without taking the meter out. If I can't do that, then I'm gonna have to take the meter out and take a look at what's going on. So while I'm here, I thought might as well quickly test the meter next to it, which is the second flat, and got the gas on, going around all the connections. Nothing's leaking here. I thought it would have been again the track pipe. It's not. But this one probably inside somewhere, but I'll get the outside sorted on flat one first, then I'll work my way inside. So back to flat one, which was the gas meter on the left. Unfortunately, I did have to take the gas meter out. There was just no access. When I took the gas meter out and I tried to tighten that connection, it did just seem loose. But I thought, I have no idea what this guy's done. He's not registered, so let me just quickly take it apart, see how it looks. Looks all fine, so just going to tighten it and hopefully it'll be all good. So put it all back together, going to do another tightness test, and it's still leaking. But it's gone from losing a millibar every 2 seconds to losing about a millibar after the whole 2 minutes. So massive progress. I've done all my checks again with my sniffer in here. I can't detect anything now, so it's going to be somewhere inside. So now I'm going to go inside and see if I can find anything. So running my sniffer along this trap pipe connection, and surprise, surprise, it's leaking again. But this one's really accessible, so hopefully really easy to tighten and really easy to fix. Okay, so this is flat 2 now. Flat 1 is all sorted, done a tightness test, there's no drop. So in terms of this one, going around the connections, not really picking anything up. So I decided to remove that clip and then I find something interesting. So I sprayed everything with LDF and I noticed that from those little holes right there, it was bubbling. Putting my sniffer on it, it's going off. So you can see it's bubbling there. So either the pipe's been dented there and there's a hole and it's leaking there, or it's leaking somewhere else and that's just the easiest place for the gas to escape, is that point there. So I've cut it back, can't really see any holes, can't see anything wrong with the pipe. Run my sniffer along it, spray LDF on it, nothing's leaking there. And then at the corner of my eye, you see right at the bottom there, it's starting to bubble. So I think it's leaking somewhere else on that track pipe, and this is just the easiest place for it to escape. So cut it back even more, and what's really interesting is it looks like that track pipe has corroded already. And the reason I say that's interesting is because a guy reckons this is all brand new. And there it is, right there. So I'll open it up, see if I can see anything inside, but it's strange how it started to corrode already, even though it's brand new track pipe. So opened it up and you can actually see it inside if I can get the camera to focus and zoom in. So it's a bit strange. It'll be interesting to see if anyone knows why this is corroded so quickly. So if you've had this happen in the past, put it in the comments, feel free to let me know. But in terms of what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try cut it back, extend the copper, and hopefully it's not corroded anywhere else. So you can see, trimmed it back, got my 28mm copper pipe there. I've just wedged a little bit of the track pipe to hold it level while I solder, and then I'll just clip it after. So all level, let's get soldering. Not bad, not bad, but I'm going to do my tightness test. If that's all good, I'll clip it, put my yellow tape on for the track pipe, and that'll be it. Tightness test is all good, so just going to do all the touching up, and this job is all done. So in terms of this next job, I've got a Vaillant that's got no power to it. So try to turn it on, it's just not turning on. So the first thing I do is test if I've got 230 at this socket here. In terms of how I do that, take the plug out, I plug in my plug tester, and it will just tell me straight away whether there's 230 there. I do. So the next thing I test is if I've got 230 between live and neutral. Again, I do. So it's probably going to be an issue with the fuse. So I check the fuse if there's any continuity there. There's not. So for some reason this fuse is blown. So we're going to put in a new fuse and then see what happens. So I've put the new fuse in. It seems like it's working fine. It goes through its normal sequence of the diverter moving. The pump then seemed like it's going to kick in, but then it's tripping at the consumer unit. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be the pump. And there's something as well that indicates it's going to be the pump that I'll show you now. So the electrical connections are wet inside the pump. In terms of why, the expansion vessel has failed above it, and you can see it's slowly been dripping inside the pump, and of course it's messed up the pump. So gonna have to change the expansion vessel and also change the pump on this job. So that's the pump and the expansion vessel changed over. Boiler's working perfectly fine now. I didn't record changing the pump and expansion vessel because they're super basic, plus I've already got videos on that on my channel. But that is this job all done. So for this job, customers complaining that the heating's not working. So I try to turn it on, nothing's happening. So I go over to the zone valve and it does seem quite stiff. It's not really moving properly, so there's probably going to be an issue with the zone valve. But again, the first thing we're always looking for is a demand. So I want to test the brown cable to see if I've got 230 on there. So again, this one's nice. We've got a diagram on the back of it. So brown cable should be going into 4. But again, if you're unsure, you can always follow the cable with your finger and try to find the brown one. But this one does go to 4. So with the program thermostat on, I am getting power on 4, the brown cable. So what should be happening if the zone valve is working fine, that should activate the motor, activate a switch, and then we should get power on the orange cable. We're not, so it's going to be an issue with the zone valve. And plus you can hear, it doesn't really sound too good either. So just come back from tool station, got the new head, gonna get it swapped over. Now this wiring center is an absolute mess. So instead of doing the cables one by one like I did in my last video, I'm just going to take them all out so I've got a bit more space and do it like that. So that's all 5 cables disconnected now. For some reason they haven't wired in a lot of the earths into this wiring center, which is strange, but should pull that cable out, and now I've got space to put my new cable in and then put in my new 5 cables. So here are my new 5 cables, just going to put them in where they need to go. So that's all the cables in, tighten them, pull them, they're not going anywhere. Just going to turn it on and make sure it's actually working now. And that's it, getting a demand now, so that switch is actually getting activated with that motor. So this job is all sorted. So this next job was supposed to be a gas safety check, and you can see that this burner's not burning properly. So I need to investigate what's going on and if I can fix it. So just to compare, that bottom left one is how it should look, and you can see they're completely different. So I'll go to inspect it, but like a plum I forget it's baking hot and I burn my hand, which is always fun. So these 2 top burners are exactly the same size, so I swap them around to see what's going on. And that right burner, if I put it in the left, it then works perfectly fine. So I think there's something wrong with this. And when I try to put it in the right one or the left one, it just doesn't seem to fit. So I don't know if it's just slowly expanded over time, or it's been lost and the landlords try to replace it with something that's similar and it's just not fitting properly. No idea, but that's going to need to be replaced. So for this job, customers complaining that there's no heating, but for me to get to the boiler, it's in that cupboard there. So I have to climb round this clothes rail, then slide the clothes rail out of the way, and then I can finally get to the boiler, which is, you can already tell it's going to be a fun job. So it's only the heating that's not working. Hot water works perfectly fine, so it's probably going to be something to do with the thermostat. So what I do is test that the thermostat and the programmer are working properly. So turn the thermostat down, does that green light go off? Yeah, it does. Now, if I turn the temperature back up, does that green light come on? Yep, it does. So now I know the thermostat and programmer are paired properly. For some reason, it's just not sending power to the boiler. So you can see with the thermostat cooling for heat, I'm not getting any power on RT. I already opened up the programmer, it's wired perfectly fine, but for some reason it's just not working. So it's looking like a new thermostat. So I'll come back 2 days later now. I told the customers to pick whatever thermostat you want and let me know when you've got it and I'll put it in. So he's got the thermostat, we're now going to install it. So the first thing is to remove the cables from the old thermostat. So I'm going to remove the RT cable and then the live cable for the thermostat. So customers gone for the hubless version of the Hive Mini, and these seem to be really popular at the moment. I think I've installed at least 3 of these in the past month. So I don't know if they're on a Black Friday deal or what, but yeah, really popular at the moment. But in terms of wiring it, really simple. I've got a whole beginning to end video. If you want to watch it, I'll put a link in the description. I've wired the receiver. I just need to wire it into the boiler now. So I've wired the new thermostat a little bit different to the old thermostat. The old thermostat was getting the power from the fuse spur. I've now taken the power from the boiler. First, I need to take the cable out of this fuse spur, and that should be it. So, new thermostat set up. Boiler's working perfectly fine now. This job is all done. And that is that for this episode. If you've got any input on anything, you would have done something different, any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. On another note, if you want to get access to any of the cheat sheets that I've got, access to all of the videos I do, you can sign up to my site, take a look. But yeah, see you in the next episode.